Okay, so this is teaching reading to young learners. I like to bring books into my young learner lessons wherever possible, because kids respond pretty well to books a lot of the time. They also respond to a lot of the language in the books, and you'd be surprised at the quality of language in children's books. The level is often a lot higher than you would think with at least some of the language. So let's take a look at this book. This is Ono George, which we've read together before, I believe. But what kind of animal is George? Who can tell me?
He looks like a dog.
He is a dog. Well done.
But
the book is called Ono George. Does that mean that we're happy with George or not happy with George?
Not happy with George.
Not happy.
Probably not happy with George. Oh, but look at him. Do you think he's a nice dog? Does he look like a friendly dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? Do you think he wants to be good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he wants to be good. Is it easy to be good?
Absolutely never.
No.
No. So he wants to be good, but maybe he's not going to be good all the time. What sort of things can dogs do in our home where they're not always so good? What bad things do you think they might do?
Sure,
Always
pillows.
eat my homework.
So eating something. Yeah,
Oh,
definitely. The dog might eat your homework. Anything else?
Pee
Can't
on
hear
the
the
floor.
intruder, but can hear me opening a packet of chips.
So maybe he's not a very good guard dog. Okay, maybe.
make a mess on the floor.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is a children's book, so it's probably not going to be that kind of mess. But what other sort of mess might he create?
You can wee on the floor.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is probably not in a children's book, but
Oh, sorry.
Choose.
Maybe bringing some mud from outside.
yeah, some mud. What's another word for mud? What is it when it's not wet?
Ground.
Dirt?
Soil.
Soil. Okay,
Soil.
very nice. So yeah, dogs like soil, don't they? What do they like doing in soil?
Digging it.
They like digging. Okay. So he might make a mess. He might dig in some soil. He might eat something he's not supposed to eat. Okay, let's have a look together.
Harris is going out. Will you be good, George? Asks Harris. Yes, says George. I'll be very good.
Aha. Which one is Harris?
The one on the left.
Aha. And who is Harris?
The dog owner.
Okay, the owner. Very good. And what's he going to do?
He's going out.
Why do you think he's going out?
He needs to buy groceries.
Oh, okay. Because he's carrying a bag. That sounds about right.
Next. I hope I'll be good, George thinks. George sees something in the kitchen. It's cake. I said I'd be good, George thinks, but I love cake. What will George do?
Ooh, what do you think? What will George do?
He'll eat the cake.
Maybe he will. Let's see.
Oh no, George.
Oh dear. Was the cake for George?
No,
No.
No. So is it good or bad to eat the cake?
bad.
How much cake is he eating?
The whole thing.
It looks like it. I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
Next. What has George seen now? It's cat. I said I'd be good, George thinks, but I love to play with cat. What will George do?
What do you think? What will George do?
Chase the cat.
And what will happen if he chases the cat?
You'll break things in the house.
Let's find out.
Oh no, George.
Were you right? What's happening in the picture?
No, he's eating the cat.
I don't know if he's eating it exactly, but he is chasing it. And what's happening to other things in the picture?
Falling over.
They are. Is he making a mess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
He is,
Next.
isn't he?
What has George seen now? Some lovely soil. I said I'd be good, George thinks, but I love to dig soil. What will George do?
Oh, somebody said soil before. Who was it?
Me.
Well done. Good work. You said soil. Oh, what will he do now then?
Dig.
Dig in the soil.
Oh, no. And what will happen when he digs in the soil?
Well, the flowers will fall out.
They will. Yeah. And where will the soil go?
In
On
the
the
house.
floor.
Oh, no. Let's see.
Oh no, George.
Ah, you're right.
Harris is back. Hello, Harris. Great to see you. George, what have you done? You've ruined the place. And how on earth did you eat a whole cake?
Ah. Is George happy to see Harris?
No, not at this moment.
No.
Was he happy at first?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
Aha. But then he's not happy. Why?
because he made a mess.
Aha. Did he think that he did something wrong at first?
No.
No.
No. But then Harris isn't happy, so then George knows that he did something wrong.
Yes.
What does Harris mean? He says you've ruined the place. Is that good or bad?
Very bad.
It's very bad.
Bad.
Aha. Is it easy to fix the problem?
No.
So if you ruin something, it's not easy to fix, is it?
Next. I said I'd be good, George thinks. I hoped I'd be good, but I wasn't. What will George do?
What do you think?
Help Paris
Maybe. Why?
because he feels bad for what he did.
Aha. How do you know he feels bad?
He's got a tear in his eye.
He's crying. Very good. That's right.
Next. I'm sorry, George says. I want to give you my favourite toy. Thank you, George, says Harris. Why don't we go out for a nice walk?
Oh, so how did George say sorry?
Gave him his favorite toy.
Aha, that's right. Is Harris angry still?
No.
Aha, and they're going to do something together.
Tuck.
Well,
Yes. They're
They're
going
going
for a walk.
They are going for a walk. What do you think will happen on the walk?
You'll behave maybe, and you'll enjoy the
No, he won't behave.
walk.
So somebody thinks he'll behave and some people aren't so sure. Interesting. Well,
But I don't
we'll
think this
find
is
it.
a fair trade, to be honest. A duck for cake, flowers,
Yeah.
nah.
It's a pretty good duck.
Yeah.
Okay. And in a normal lesson, of course, I would continue with telling the story like that. I'm going to send you to breakout rooms now. And in the breakout rooms, I want you to discuss what happened. What did I do before the book? And what did I do whilst we were going through the book? How do you think these things will help students approach reading in English? I can hear you.
Hey, Chris.
So what did we do before the book?
We predicted what we thought was going to happen based on the title and the pictures.
Very
Okay.
good. Do you
Yeah.
think that I was leading you towards anything?
Yes, you seem to be guiding us with questions that would maybe help us
Mhm.
understand what was happening.
Do you think it was necessary to do that?
It would probably
yes.
depend on the level of the students, right?
Anga, what do you think?
Oh, I think, yeah, it also depends on the level, but you are also eliciting some target vocabulary or target language from us.
Yeah. I don't like pre-teaching vocabulary, where you have a list of vocabulary and you try to get the meaning across before you do a listening or a reading. Can you guess why I don't like pre-teaching vocabulary?
It takes away the student's ability to maybe figure it out for themselves.
That's a big part of it, yeah. That's one of the two main reasons. The other reason?
Maybe it's harder to learn or retain the vocabulary when you learn it without a context around it. Like the context of the story helps you learn
That's
it.
the key word. It's not so much about the difficulty of learning that new language. That's certainly true. But how do you teach decontextualized vocabulary?
I guess you have to either ask questions or give synonyms or definitions or something, right?
Well, precisely. It's difficult. It's almost impossible. The whole point of vocabulary instruction is to contextualize everything, to make it more memorable to the student, certainly, but to give them a sense of what the word is for in the first place. If you just take a random assortment of like 10 words and just throw them out there, they're not going to stick. They're not going to make any sense. And even with things like Duolingo, where you have this like very simple language learning app, they have things organized around themes. So you're not just going to learn in one lesson a sport, an item of clothing, and something to eat. They would be in 3 different thematic units to establish a sense of context. So I wanted to pre-teach the word soil because I know that most students that I teach probably won't know it. They might also not know dig. But instead of giving them the words dig and soil and seeing if they know what they mean just on their own, which they wouldn't, I was trying to get them to think about the naughty things that dogs might do, knowing that this language appears later in the story, and I want them to know it when we go in. When they see it, they will then recognize it. So it's a form of pre-teaching. Generally, I don't like pre-teaching for the very reason that you isolated first, which is this idea of then taking away the student's ability to get the meaning from context. You know, if I'm not there reading the book with them, who's going to tell them the meaning of the words? They need to figure these things out a little bit for themselves. But at the same time, I want them to be able to understand the story. So that's kind of the balance that's being struck. And what about during the telling? Did we just read each page?
No. You stopped to have them make more predictions as they were going and to check if they're understanding what happened.
Good.
What's happening.
Check understanding.
Exactly. Yeah. So there were lots of little comprehension questions along the way. Some more prediction. Prediction tasks help generate interest. So we did a prediction task at the start. What do you think makes people say, Ono George? So we had that prediction task, and then we check our predictions. And that's a reason to want to read the story. And then as we're going through, you want those little comprehension check questions, partly to see that the students are still paying attention, but also to see that they understand the material so far, that it's not just a sequence of words. And a lot of the little words that students often have problems with at lower levels are the same words that they have problems with in their own language, things like but. So I said I would be good, but I love to play with cat. And you can draw attention to it by asking about the 2 sides of that sentence. And this will help them deepen their understanding of some of these conjunctions and other devices.
Oh, I was just going to say, nigs on being a teacher.
To open the link. Oh, wait. So we have to go. Okay, let's go on the link. So do we have to choose a book?
Yeah. So if one of you whoever's chosen to be the teacher, you go ahead and share the screen.
Who would like to be the teacher? Anyone?
I think it's going to be you. I think it's going to be Marcel, by the looks of
Oh, man. Okay,
it.
fine. Anybody want to join me?
I'm trying to open the link. I'm using my phone.
So Marcel, if you're on a computer, it might be easiest for you. Are you on a?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sure.
please.
Okay.
So yeah, you go ahead and share the screen with the main page with all the books.
Yes.
That's it. And then I think one that you might like would be in the top left, above Ono George. I think it's Open Carefully. I think it might be called Open Very Carefully. So I think that would be a good one. So we've got the front page. This is the front page of the book. So you're going to generate some interest for us. You want us to be interested in this book. So what are you going to ask us?
Okay, give me one moment, please. I just want to move to a spot where my mouse works better. Okay. Open very carefully. Okay. So what animals can you see on this picture?
I see a crocodile and a duck.
And how does the crocodile look? Is he awake?
He is fat.
Fat.
and he's smiling.
He's smiling.
Yes.
Do you think he might be a bit sleepy?
I think he's laughing.
Laughing. Open very carefully. Wait, book with, okay. So what do we normally open? No.
A book?
Before we do that, let's stick
Well,
with
what did you
the
do?
let's stick with the animal. So
Okay.
we've described what we can see here, but the animal is also the animal. So we could maybe think about associations.
Yeah.
What
so
what do we
know?
think about for this sort of animal?
Okay. So what do we think about a crocodile?
Maybe you can ask questions like, where does a crocodile live? I think maybe.
Mhm.
Where will we see a crocodile?
Yeah.
In the zoo.
In the zoo?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do they only live in zoos?
No,
No, where else can we find a crocodile?
in Australia.
In a
At my house, teacher, I have a crocodile toy.
Oh, really? Does it have?
Yeah.
I have one in class. It's one of those ones you push the teeth and then it bites you.
Okay, so Chris, would I now maybe move over to, I don't know, maybe this guy? What is
Well, I think that guy is going to be fairly innocent in the scope of the story. It's going to be mostly about the crocodile. So to generate some interest and maybe predict some of the things that will come up, I might say, what would you do? What would you do if you saw a crocodile?
Okay.
How would you feel? What sort of things do crocodiles do? And then you can explore the idea of biting and eating and munching and chomping, if they've got some of these other words. But yeah, I think otherwise you've got some interest generated, and then you can go into the book.
So 1 second, Chris.
Yes.
Should we say anything about the open very carefully, or no, or just stick to the animals?
Well, ideally, before we do this, you'd have read the book, but I'm not giving the opportunity to do that. So the title here, Open Very Carefully, would be a great last question. You read the book with the kids and you say, okay, the story is called Open Very Carefully. Why? What does it mean? And then the students will be able to answer it, or at least attempt an answer, because of what we've learned from the book. With Ono George, that title was a lot more descriptive and predictive of the story itself. So we were using it as part of the prediction task. Here you could, or you would want to read the book first.
Okay.
There's no one right method. The important thing is just to generate as much interest as you can, so that it also gets some of the language going in their heads. So when we talk about what crocodiles do, and we start thinking of bite and other things connected with biting, a lot of the language is going to make more sense as we go through the story, because of course biting will be a big part of the story.
Yeah.
But if without that kind of activation activity, the students might not associate some of the unfamiliar language of the book with the process of biting. Okay.
Read along.
Sure. I'm not sure if you're sharing your sound, so you might have to read it to us.
Oh, okay, wait, I can do this.
That's
There's
it.
an option to share your sound.
Marcel's
Yeah,
got
I
it.
did.
Yeah, you've got a little tick box.
That's probably why my students never hear anything.
Once upon a time, there was a mother duck with 3 pretty ducklings and one... Wait a minute! What's that?
Yeah, sort of. It's quite a good little poem.
Okay, so which book have you been looking at?
Some dogs do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
and what were your prediction tasks?
We could see that the dog was in the air, so we thought that it has to do with some dogs do fly.
Aha. It's a good little piece of language for the students to explore. It's not often that you see the operator or the auxiliary verb do actually stressed, certainly not at lower levels. So when you get these sort of things, oh, my dog doesn't do this, but this one does, or some dogs do, that sort of grammar. The great thing about kids' books is that they're not trying to teach a grammar point. This is, for me, the beauty of authentic texts. No children's book is trying to teach a grammar point to native speaker audiences. Whereas if you take a story from one of your kids' course books, every story is there really as a grammar delivery method, and that strips of its authenticity, and it draws too much attention to itself. Now, if you think about Ono George, it's so natural that George says, I wanted to be good, I hoped I'd be good. You have all of that really natural use of modals there in different time frames as well. Imagine how many levels of study your students would have to go through to encounter that language in a course book. They could be 13, 14 years old before they come across a sentence like, I thought I'd be good, something like that. They're just not going to see it until much later. But if you show it to them and don't necessarily draw attention to it, they have a really good chance of acquiring that language, even though they're not ready to learn it. And I think that can be one of the beauties of using these sort of books. Writing down when these 40-minute sessions begin. You're always laughing when you come back to the main room. There's always something that I've missed that was obviously hilarious. I feel like
What's the joke? Tell us the joke.
No, it's fine. It's not a joke. It's just we were reading the bunny book. Yeah. Let's just say my class is very entertaining.
Dude.
Well, that's the important thing, isn't it? You want these lessons to be entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much as these ones.
I actually was teaching my kindergarten some time ago with animals, and I thought my student was saying the F word whenever I tell him duck. So he would keep saying, and I was like, oh my gosh, why is this child cursing in my room? Not realizing he was making the sound quack, but he was saying it as though it's the F word. So
because that's how you say it in Polish. Polish ducks go fuck, fuck, fuck.
Yes, that is how it was exactly. That, and I'm like, oh no, what do I do?
Classic.
Oh gosh.
I've also realized that song, when you teach body parts
we're
and you got
making duck noise. I mean, like, don't curse in class. But if you do, you can just pretend to be a duck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What, the duck?
Exactly.
Cam, what were you going to
Start
say?
making the flappy arms.
You do know we're recording, guys, so please don't use the F
Oh
word.
yeah, this is going to go viral. I can't wait.
Oh, I mean, last week I was caught out saying the S word, so
S word? Is that school?
Yeah, what's
No,
that?
it's like SIP, but without the P.
One of the students at my school calls it the police school instead of the preschool.
They've been
Her
held
dad taught her
captive.
that on purpose, so she knows it's a preschool.
But you know, I've made a similar mistake because there is a kind of like high school for adults or something. It's like not normal high school, but it's what the word for it in Polish is policjalne. And I always went past thinking, my God, they train a lot of police around here. I don't want these slackers in the police force. Look at that. They don't study or anything. They're just loitering around smoking cigarettes between classes.
Oh, sounds like South Africa.
Back home.
Okay, so we've got some good ideas then for how we can develop reading as we deliver it. In the time we have remaining, let's take a look at an example of what students have to do when they read, and we'll examine what would be difficult for these students. So here's an example of a reading task at A1 movers level. So this is pretty low. It's one of the first steps going through. But as you can see, there's still quite a lot of text. And that's the first thing that you'll notice. For students around 8 or 9, the amount of text in this one task is approaching the amount of text that we had in some of those books, isn't it? If you were to take the whole text of Ono George, you would not have much more than this. And this is just one reading activity that they might have to take or face in the exam. So there's quite a lot that goes on there. Now, in terms of the task structure then, we have a short text. Some of the words are missing, but you'll notice that the words are given in the box above, along with a picture. And you would think, okay, that's going to make it very, very easy. But is it so easy?
Not for them.
Us or for them?
Not for them. For us, it is, yeah. But I mean, for them, it might be a lot difficult.
So let's go through and see what sort of things they need to do, and then think about what we need to teach so that they can do it. So Fred and Grace live in the town centre, but on sunny days, they sometimes go for bike rides in the countryside. Now, okay, so that's our example, but to be able to understand that, and if we had it as a real gap, we would need to process a few things. We'd need to notice, for example, that days is a noun. So we need an adjective to describe what kind of day we're talking about. So we need to then identify an adjective from the words in the box. But we also need to know that this adjective collocates with the idea of a day, and therefore one attribute of the day, which is the weather. But how would we get the answer lake? How do we know it's that?
Water, rocks.
Water and rocks, very good.
Island?
You can also say because they rode a little, so to get to a lake, it's a bit out of the city where you go into like nature.
Good, so it's the destination that they reached. Okay, but they need to process all of that information to be able to get it.
That's a bit difficult for them, though, I'd definitely say.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think it's simple because they've got the words and they've got the pictures. But getting the words and the pictures is not going to help them always put them in the right place. And I have seen this myself with students because I teach this level right now. I have students who are A1 movers level, and they struggle with this task. They either struggle with it or they do it in a couple of minutes flat and it's all perfect. The ones who struggle are struggling because they haven't learnt to look at the context around the gap and to draw conclusions from that context.
I think we tend to kind of take it for granted because we speak English and it's so easy and it comes so naturally for us that we forget that we have to teach our students these little things to help them get to the answer.
Exactly. And it's really teaching a skill more than the language, isn't it? It's the skill of identifying the nature of the information in the sentence. So yeah, come here, ducks, he shouted, but the ducks didn't come because they were of the noise.
They were
afraid.
They were afraid of the noise.
Where do we see this?
Good.
Oh, okay.
But when we see the word noise, we could just as easily reach for the word loud.
Yeah.
If all we're doing is drawing connections. We think
also-
noise is
yeah.
loud. Okay.
But also like the picture afraid, and you're talking about ducks, kind of it's a bit of a stretch for the students to kind of know that that's what it means.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You know?
Unfortunately, the illustrator was not
Yeah.
capable of showing fear in the face of a duck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know. I'm just saying it. I mean, if a kid had to look at this, it would be
Yes.
like, I don't know what you're kind of talking
No,
about.
you're absolutely right. Yeah. Don't worry about the ducks now, Fred, Grace said. Let's sit down on our rug. I've got some apple juice in my bag to drink. Do you want some? She asked. Yes, I'm really thirsty, Fred answered. Let's eat all our cheese now too.
Sandwiches.
Sandwiches, not too difficult.
Yeah.
But again, we look at the little clues like cheese. What
And
goes
eat.
with cheese here? Eat.
Eat.
Excellent. Yeah. Grace took the food out of her bag. Look, she said, those ducks aren't frightened now. They can see our picnic. Let's feed them. We can them some of our bread.
Give.
Exactly. But we have to identify that after can, we need a verb. And it needs to be the verb that goes with the context, which is bread. We have bread. They don't have bread. So we can kind of share it this way. We can give the bread. Again, we still need to be able to identify what's going on in the sentence. Good idea, said Fred. Come on, you silly ducks. There's lots of for you to eat here. I love animals, Grace laughed. I want to be a one day, but I'd like to help sick animals get better more than people, I think. Doctor. Now that's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because she's talking about animals and what she wants to be one day. But we have to see that but I'd like to help sick animals get better more than people. So we've got a comparative as well. Now, by that stage, you've ruled out most of the words. So it should be a process of elimination, but it might still prove quite tricky.
But I mean, yeah, like if you use the word but, we still then have to teach them about the word but, what it actually really means. Because you don't want to just let them guess all the time. You want to try and let them get to the answer correctly.
Yes. And at this sort of A1, not pre-A1, but at the full A1 level, they will be exposed more and more to conjunctions and will have to understand how sentences are constructed. And I did a little experiment recently in one of my movers classes where I had to teach them. It was the book, and we were doing but, so, because, and. So those four conjunctions. And a couple of the students didn't get it. So I translated and I taught part of the lesson in Polish. And I taught them those words in Polish. So like so was like więc, because would be bo or dlatego, but, ale, and I. And I came up with little bits of sentences in Polish and asked them to tell me the missing word. Now, I did this as an experiment because I wanted to get into the head of the kids that were struggling. And out of the 3 students that were struggling, 2 of them continued to struggle in Polish.
Oh.
One of them, the translation helped. They got it because they knew the Polish and the English had been too scary. But with the other 2, even in Polish, they weren't going for the words. They thought that the sentences were complete without them. So they weren't suggesting the right Polish word. So it shows that they'd reached a certain level in their development of discourse in L1. So there was no way I was going to be able to teach them all of these discourse elements in L2. They didn't have it in their L1 yet. And I thought that was really useful as a little experiment because the old me would have just kept on hitting it to them. Come on, guys, it's easy. Look, it's this and then it's this. So we put but in the middle. But if I'd said it all in Polish, it would have been the same response. So that's when you say, okay, time to stop and we'll come back to it. Maybe in a few weeks, maybe in a few months. Let's give them the chance to see it more in the world. Maybe to learn it in Polish, and then we'll return to it. But once you've gone through that text, notice there's one more task. Choose the best name for the story.
Fred, Duck's friends.
Fred's what? What? Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Not that type of
You
book.
completely misread that, and it was
No,
a much
sorry.
more interesting story for Fred.
Would have fit more in with my students.
What, the triple F book?
Yeah. Told you, you're gonna read those reach around books.
Yeah.
Well, the third option would be the
Yes. But what sort of thinking process is required to get this answer?
You gotta link what's happening in the story.
You have to understand enough about the story to like get the general gist of it, and like you have to understand, okay, we talked about bikes a little bit, but not like that was not the point of the story. They ate some sandwiches and said the word picnic, but that was not the point of the story.
And it wasn't mum.
The biggest, most
there wasn't
important
mum,
thing what in the story was the ducks.
Very good. Yes.
Well, Fred
So-
and the duck. Yeah.
So yes, you're absolutely right. So we can do certain things here. We can go through as a process of elimination and say, okay, why are these answers wrong? So that's very useful to do so that we isolate the right answer. But it is more of a general understanding, isn't it? So again, we come back to the authentic text, the books that we started with. When I read Ono George to my students, I asked them to tell me what the story was about. And through a little bit of leading, we got to it. It's easy to say you want to be good. It's difficult to be good. That was the point of the story. There's also an aspect of forgiveness and, caring about how people feel towards you. But the idea is we wanted to get to the meaning. Now, with the next activity, when I asked you to be the teacher, at least one of the groups chose Open Very Carefully as the book. And this is the story of the ugly duckling, but it's interrupted on the very first page by the appearance of a crocodile. Before they can continue reading the story of the ugly duckling, they have to get rid of the crocodile from the book. It's a very kind of fourth wall breaking sort of thing, but kids love it. And then you come back to the title at the end and you say, why is it called Open Very Carefully? Because there's a crocodile inside. And if you don't open it carefully, it could bite your fingers. That's the sort of cognitive processing, the idea of understanding why we choose these words that will help answer things like choose the best name for the story. This example was trivially easy, but believe me, some of the examples are pretty tricky. You look at them, you say, well, these two both look correct to me. And that shows just how much is being asked of our students sometimes. So these sort of skills then, being able to understand how words fit into sentences, how sentences are constructed. I've taken a pretty low level example, but the same principles apply as you go through the young learner levels. Towards the upper end, you start needing to understand why utterances are made. You need to understand why this person is saying this now to this other person. What's the deeper meaning? You have to read between the lines a little bit. That comes with time and with age and experience, certainly. But this is the fundamental framework that leads to that. You can't read between the lines at higher levels without understanding how the simple lines are constructed in the first place. And these sort of tasks will give them that experience if you draw attention to it. Otherwise, students just need a lot of material for it to kind of be absorbed. And you'll notice when you start teaching students at 14, 15, 16 who have good English language skills, but who are unable to tell you the deeper meaning, they haven't been through these processes enough yet. They haven't made them obvious enough yet. So if you start early and you build that sort of ability to comprehend into your lessons, you will set up people for when they are 15, 16 or adults.